time. It's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. Really appreciate all the support this week. The numbers keep growing, the new people keep showing up. Everybody, I believe, is learning a little bit faster and better with each other. And with that said, the topic today or keyword is welcome. I'm so honored again to have Christy Howard with us and Harvey Tuck. There are just old hands at this, and we're here really to support, help you. I know Harvey and Christy do a lot of that outside of here with people looking for work. So, our intentions are all for the good, and love to hear success stories. And chat's open. We depend on you for that. With that said, I'll turn it over to Christy, and she can give her take on welcome and how that fits in.
Well, welcome, welcome, and welcome. I love welcome. It shows manners. There's so many ways of saying welcome. And, that's what I like about your word of the day, Don, is we realize that we can get into some deep stories, uh, deep ways of, how we look at welcome. Yesterday was about your tone. I, I don't know what the word was, but it was
Well,
about the tone.
the word yesterday was interesting.
Okay, interesting. But we talked about the tone.
Mhm.
So with any word, it has a lot to do with your tone. I know that there's times where somebody will say something snippy to me and I'll be like, yeah, you're welcome. Like. So anyway, as always looking forward to Friday mornings with you gentlemen. And Harvey, how's London?
Very hot. I'm very hot in my car here.
Put your hair on.
But I'm not going to complain. It's lovely. Yes, I completely resonate with what you just said there. Welcome. It's a lovely word in all senses, really. You're welcome is a lovely thing to say. Welcoming people, and a welcome surprise as well. I think I'm really looking forward. Every week I look forward to how other people view the word and think of the word. For me, it's great. I always have a moment to think of what we're going to talk about, think about it myself in some different ways. And I always enjoy that part of it, to start to sort of think about a word in a new way. But nothing beats seeing how somebody else thinks about it. So welcome everybody. I wanted to say that one, you beat me to it, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into it.
Well, that's great. It just starts so well because what Christy said makes so much sense. Because usually welcome is a response to something, right? Usually thank you. Someone says thank you, you typically would say you're welcome, or you got a beautiful garden, and that's a welcoming uh, reception of something. So I think welcome is in response to a lot of situations. I think to Christy's point, if you take any word and add tone to it, cadence to it, and here's another big thing, especially if you're visible, is your facial expression.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you say something and you're smiling and positive, that will influence the word in how it's used as opposed to the other way. So, what I learned yesterday about the word was there's so much to packaging a word in the right context with the right delivery to get the effect. And usually it's to reward or impress. It's really welcome as an acknowledgement
Mm-hmm.
of something. And also, to Harvey's point, welcome is being invited in. They welcomed me with great anticipation. Before I turn it right over to Christy, let me just run through the names here. Here's a new individual, Isa. Thank you so much for coming. It's always good to see new faces. Andrea's here. Andrea is just a great lady and a supporter of the show and a great contributor. So thank you, Andrea, for being here. Joseph is here, new name, watching live from Children of God Mission in an orphanage. Well, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Natalie is here. Good morning. Got a call scheduled with this wonderful lady. Kelly's here. Kelly's here even when she's not here. You know, her energy and her impact goes beyond her mere presence. So thank you so much, Kelly. And Kelly and Christy do the awesome journey. Actually, next Tuesday I'll be on it. So, you know, and you can just go from my show almost to their show, actually a little bit easier because you got a few more minutes in between. So anyways, look forward to all of us continue to grow, learn, and succeed together. And that's so important. Isa says, okay, it's a lot to read there, but it's in comments. Harvey, Tuck, are you by the highway? I hope he is, because if not, all those cars zooming around, you know, that could be a challenge. Shanir's here. Thank you so much. It looks like we pretty much caught up. So, Christy, it looks like there's so many contextual ways that words can serve. And I hope they serve both parties when they're used. Again, as a response, what's your new thoughts on welcome?
Well, I mean, again, it's a word. It's how you're saying it, the context you're saying it, and understanding it. I love the word because I like manners. That those tend to go out the window. That when you say something, you know, just say welcome. You know, I welcome that. You know, welcome can be another way of saying thank you as well. It's just how, you know, I'm just big on the tone. I'm big on it's welcome also is a way of acknowledging that their presence, their actions, everything that they're doing. And it's a word that you're acknowledging. I don't know, maybe I went down that rabbit hole as I usually do.
No, I think it's great insight, Harvey.
I'll unmute myself. I realise that there's noise of cars whizzing by all the time. So, yeah, I think so. I think also welcome is about a sort of a beginning, an opening. You know, whether that's a new beginning or you know a conversation. So I think it's, you know, when you're welcoming someone in to your house or you're welcoming them into a conversation. I think it's nice to look at it that way, you know, and I think it would be good to see if anybody has any, you know, interesting stories or examples of how someone welcoming them in has created a new story in their life. You know, I often say that it only takes one connection to change your life. And I really believe it, you know, and when you connect with somebody, you know, when you send out that connection request and they press accept, they're welcoming you into their world. You know, and sometimes that comes with some risks or you know, sometimes, you know, they might change their mind, but, you know, I think even just when you add a new connection or you get accepted, when you send a connection request, there's a welcoming there. So I think, I think welcoming is sometimes about something new.
Well, you know, to that point, if you look at welcoming, you usually look about coming into something, right? You get a new job, they welcome you at, you know, when you come in, they show you the office, they give you whatever you need to get going. You start school, they welcome you into the class of whatever year that is, you know, so it's actually entry has a lot to do with welcome. And also visualization is when, if you closed your eyes, did you feel most welcome? What welcoming event did you ever participate in, right? And usually that's recognition that you love. You know, when they say we want to welcome to the stage Christy and we want to honor her with this, you know, so I think to Harvey's point, what welcoming moments, what does welcome mean to you that you can share with others, including ourselves, to kind of reinforce again, how many opportunities there are to visualize things or realize things in different ways than you have, which allows you to act differently when you do it. Again, if you're welcoming, a lot of welcoming has to do with hugging and handshaking, right? If you're a relative and you see somebody you haven't seen in a while, pretty soon they'll give you a hug. You know, if it's more professional, they'll shake your hand before you sit down and talk, or shake your hand when you leave. And to Christy's point, I think it does bring a higher level of consciousness to respect. And I think all words chosen and all words applied can have so much more value than just throwing stuff out that comes to mind without thought, especially if it's an important moment for the other person, right? If you know they've just achieved something, you know, you want to welcome them to that group. You know, just became a doctor. Well, welcome and thank you for now being a doctor, an engineer, or whatever it is. So a lot of it is praise, recognition, support, just a million different things. Christy?
Well, it is. And I think we would just say that it's when you hear the word welcome, again, I hear it in two tones because I use it in the other tone, like, yeah, you're welcome, you know, a little snarky, but that's my snarky side. But in more of a welcome is a positive feeling. And so when you say welcome, you don't have to do that handshake or that hug or whatever. It's a warm word. It's a comforting word. And again, it's manners. But a lot of people might not realize that the manner stuff. They might just be like, you're welcome. I'm welcoming you into my house. I'm welcome. You know, I was sharing with Harvey. I have a neighbor that just popped over from the UK. We had just met, and he doesn't know anybody here. And I'm like, you're welcome to come into our house, you know, and you know, it's allowing yourself to embrace other people, and sometimes you don't realize that word welcome and that feeling might just be exactly what they need, because now they have the confidence of feeling comfortable of where they're going or what situation they're in. You know, it's like, let's say you're at a conference or whatever, and somebody's standing here. Here's a chair. You're welcome to sit here. Well, that person doesn't know anybody. However, you've embraced them without even knowing them, and opening up that door to say, here you are. I want to get to know you, and let's go. You know, I want you to feel comfortable. So the welcome word is allowing other people to feel comfortable as well, and it's making you feel good.
Yeah, great point, because it's proactive and reactive in different contexts. Harvey, we've got a great comment here. Maybe you can touch on it from Natalie. Great word. It expresses a sentiment of wishing someone a good arrival. This highlights the emphasis on hospitality and making someone feel comfortable when they arrive at a particular place or event. I recently joined a community on LinkedIn, and to finish that up,
everyone
made me feel very welcome.
Well, and that's so important, because that's your first impression. You know, I remember going to a relative's house and staying, or friend's house and staying, and you don't know until a day or two, am I really welcome here? You know, are they wanting me to be here? Is this a convenience or something? And I think once you realize you truly are welcome and appreciated, you know, that makes a big difference. Harvey, why don't you speak to that?
Yeah, no, I think I wrote that down, actually, what Natalie said there, because that resonated with me. I mean, I've been in the hospitality industry most of my life, or connected with it, you know, and it's very much the core of that industry to make somebody feel welcome in your restaurant or in your hotel, or and I think in business, it's absolutely relevant to make someone feel welcome, and that's why I think it connects so well to LinkedIn and things that we do here, because there's a hospitality. I mean, even the word hospitality, you know, when you're being a host, you know, you're welcoming people into your home, you know, even in a sort of a domestic sense. I think the other thing that I liked about what Natalie said was making someone feel comfortable as well. You know, in a social situation, I think it's sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? Sometimes, you know, if you're a bit shy, I'm certainly not anymore, but I used to be. I used to be very shy, you know, and you know, you'd walk into a party or something like that, and if someone didn't make you feel welcome, then, you know, you'd be on the sidelines. You know, I think if someone welcomes you, then it's you know, it's a very special thing, isn't it? And it helps you feel comfortable. Cynthia's just said something. I just wanted to read it. The best welcome I ever received is when I volunteered at an exotic animal rescue, not only from the people, but from the animals. Oh my goodness, absolutely. I want to touch on that in a minute, actually. But I would hear the lions roar on the way to the compound. I know they were just doing their thing, but it felt incredible welcome. I think that's such a lovely thing to say, because that's just, I'd completely forgotten about the connection we have with animals and the welcome that animals give us. That's such a, and here we go. You know, I say every week when somebody, it has sent shivers down my spine, that has, you know, because it you know, you forget different ways to look at these words. And I grew up with dogs, and, you know, when you got home and a dog, you know, they're wagging their tail, jumping up to you and all that sort of thing. It's wonderful. But you know what? I've got a cat now. Most people know I have a cat. But the welcome you get from a cat is very different. You know, the sense of love you get from a cat is very different to a dog. You know, it's a lot more subtle, but it's, you know, it's absolutely there. And, you know, when we come back home and we can hear our cat meowing, you know, it's such a, I really appreciate that comment. Lovely thing to say. Thank you.
Christy?
Well, I mean, I've had cats, but I have dogs. And, you know, the one thing we understand is animals give you unconditional love. Something you'll never get. You'll never get that welcome and that love from a human being as you do from an animal. You know, that's my dog, just one of them, Pino. Yeah, Pino. When she comes in, she will just bark, 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 bark. But not in a, you know, but like, because she's so happy we're home. This is sort of like, you know, but I was looking up the word welcome, and it was 2 dates that they're showing. One in 1907, the Oxford English Dictionary says that was the first time that showed up as a word. However, others will argue that it was 1603 in Othello. Now, I sort of remember Othello, but I don't remember how that welcome came through. So that's something that we could dig into, I guess. But it's old language. It's been around forever, and understanding how and I keep on saying, you know, when I think of that word and I say it to myself, I feel like a warm hug. I just feel like, you know, there's a hug. Even when I say, you know, it to people, I feel like I'm getting a hug, and I'm giving them a hug, and making somebody feel you know, comfortable. But yeah, the whole word, it can go on so many different levels that, you know, you have when you go to an airport and you see a big sign, you know, welcome, you know, it's a word that is used so many different ways and daily that you might not even catch yourself that you're actually saying it or even doing it, because you don't have to at times even say it, and the person feels welcomed. What do you say?
I think that's great. That's so beautiful because, you know, to your point, Christy, and Harvey's, we started the discussion with welcome, which was traditional someone sees you, thank you, you're welcome, shake a hand. But now when we went to pets, we can also go to places, right? And there's places you go to in nature or places that just really make a difference for you, that now you feel welcome. And I think welcome has something to do with home. You know, it's like your dogs make you feel glad to be home, right? When they welcome you. You know, everybody is focused on too many things that they don't really appreciate that they're a welcome part of that community, right? There's people go to a grocery store and cashiers might just love to see you, but they've never told you that, but they welcome you when they see you, you know? So a lot of welcome, to Christy's point, is unspoken. It's just the energy someone gives you, you know, I mean, especially if it's an older relative that really cares about you, hasn't seen you. I mean, before you know it, they're crushing you with hugs and kisses, got some baked goods ready for you, got a dinner. I mean, that welcome, I mean, was huge for them, you know, and a welcome doesn't have to be a moment. It can be an event. I mean, a lot of those roasts go on forever. You know, you get 7, 8 friends who talk about you or whatever, and that's a welcome. So I think welcome has to do with entry, acceptance, you know, comfort, and being welcomed is a great, lift for people. Natalie says, I'm French and I love to compare words in different languages. The French for welcome is bienvenue. It translates perfectly, welcome. Well, that's something cool. We learned so many different twists and angles to the words. Good morning, everyone. Hope it's a great day. Ashif says, caribou, welcome in Swahili language. It's the most used word in many African countries. And, you know, I think it has to do with culture. You know, there's a lot of cultures who are more thankful and welcoming. You know, I mean, it could be a little stereotypical, but there's a twist, there's an angle, there's a perspective from all different ways of looking at it. And like I've always said, since we've been doing words, if you can expand the definition and use of one word, you can start looking at the rest of your vocabulary and change how you hear things and how you say things. Here's a comment from Linda. Growing up on a farm, it is a great welcome when animals come running to you. And even the horse leaning his head over on your shoulder to snuggle with you is a great feeling. And I think, you know, you hit it on the nose, Linda, it's the feeling that comes with the welcome, whether it's giving it or accepting it. And I think to Christy's point, everybody wins with a welcome. You know, wouldn't you feel a little disappointed if you were so thankful and said, thank you, and no one said anything after that? You know, if they just left you there? I mean, it's almost an expectation. Christy, what's your thoughts?
I'm going to move it over to
Harvey. We were out of turn. Yeah, I try to go round robin, but
I know. I got a text. I had to look at.
No, not a problem. Harvey.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What you said there, Don, was really interesting about sort of families welcoming you. When you said baked goods, that did make me want some baked goods. I have to admit, I'm going to go and see an older relative and get some baked goods. It's quite the welcome. But I tell you what was really interesting looking at the comments actually was looking at welcome in different languages. You know, we always look at a word and different ways to use that word. But it's really interesting to look at what that word means and how it translates into other languages. And I'm loving learning the different words for welcome. You know, Swahili is a really interesting one to hear what the word is. But, you know, I think also it may transcend language as well, you know, a welcome. You know, I always remember my kids when I was on holiday, you know, they would play with other children and neither of them could speak each other's languages. But the language of play, you know, and when they first approached each other, they would try and make friends and that would be done with a welcome, but it wouldn't use language. It would be using smiles or, you know, those sorts of things. So yeah, I think it's a word that crosses many barriers. We use a few that cross barriers, but a welcome is absolutely one of those. My parents always used to sort of tell me to go off and make a friend when I was young as well, similar sort of thing. And you could definitely use tone and body language to really convey what it is that that you were trying to do. Can everybody hear me okay? Because my screen is freezing.
No, you're doing good. You're still hanging in there, Harvey, so not a problem.
Okay, well, that's cool. I was just trying to see if there was any other things. I thought Ashif said a nice thing about welcoming. Let today be the start of something new. I thought we touched on that, 10 minutes or so ago, but that's a great thing to say.
Okay, well, Christy, what's new with welcome?
I like learning. Well, I don't like learning, but I like at least having a few languages, in different languages, certain words, and welcome is one. Hello and welcome, and goodbye and thank you. And to learn, because, I've been traveling more in these last 2 years overseas. And when you have those kind of, welcome, and if they say it to you, you know what they're saying. Instead of saying, I can't understand you, say it in English, even though I'm in your country. And it's allowing yourself to understand, as the chief says, it's the most used word in Africa. I'm curious how we could quantify how many times that we say it here, if it's even really said as much as we actually think it should be said. Because I think that we have different generations, and I believe, my feeling is that different generations tend to forget those kind of words.
Yeah, I think
Not that I'm trashing them, but it is what it is.
I think you're absolutely right, because most people are going more towards being a lone wolf than a community member, so that reciprocal building relationship isn't always there at the front end. I do think what Harvey said rings a bell, because when you look at welcoming, there are nonverbal ways that are universal, right? Like thumbs up. If you put your thumbs up to somebody, they're going to probably think, hey, everything's cool. If you wave somebody to you, right? Somebody's by themselves and you just wave your hand, like, come on over to the table, or, wherever. Those things are important. And I think with kids, the way most kids get with other kids is they share or show them something, right? Let me show you my toy soldier, and all of a sudden another boy or girl will be interested and come over. So welcoming has to do with attracting, is to acknowledge and to, let's say, integrate that person. Here's a word. I think okay. Keep going. Bowing is a body language in many cultures for welcoming with respect. Well, that is important. At the same time, to that point, I'm sure there's people who say and do things in different cultures that mean different things. So there's an ability to embarrass yourself, or maybe not honor somebody in the way you are. So I think that plays a role. Paul's here. Paul's a great guy. Grateful I was finally able to get in, support you today. Well, you always try. I know that, Paul. Gene, a new name. Looking good, everyone. Thank you.
Hey, Van.
Says, must be a friend. Yes, learn from Japanese students, Linda says. Word for good morning. In French, it is connecting, but also knew how to say don't speak the language if conversation starts. That's an interesting thought. So, Harvey, you found something that you want to expand on?
Yeah, I was. First of all, just wanted to say hello to Paul, hello to Van, or Gene. I always call him Van, but it's nice to see people even whenever they can join. I know this is really valuable time, and I always really appreciate seeing people. It's exciting to see people. But yeah, I think it was really interesting to look at how an act of bowing is an act of respect and welcoming, in another culture. I think it was interesting what you said, Don, about certain symbols that are perhaps universal, but interestingly enough, and you mentioned the thumbs up. Well, that's not a universally positive one, and I discovered it only a few years ago. I mean, in the UK it certainly is, and it's used often, but actually in the part of the world that we're talking about there, it's not so positive. So it's really interesting how these things change, and and I think it's about being aware of where you are, and if you're whenever I'm in a different country, I always try and respect the culture and in the country that I'm in, or I try and research it as much as I can, because I'm a guest, and I think I try my best to speak other languages. I'm terrible, because of course when English is your first language you do become a bit lazy, and I'm very conscious of that, but I do my very best when I go away. But I think it's really interesting to examine sort of body language in terms of what its meaning is. We're perhaps coming a little bit away from welcome, but I recently played cards with my friends, and we were playing poker, and body language was very key there, to sort of knowing how someone's feeling actually as well. Yes, we're playing a card game, but you can really start to gauge if someone is feeling good or if they're feeling bad. I tell you what, that was another thing I was going to say as well. Christy, you said that when you say you're welcome, it might be what someone needs, right? And Don, you said about a welcome being connected with praise and being connected with thanking someone. And that resonated with me today. I just got my car cleaned, and there was a big queue of people, and they're all sitting in the cars with their air conditioning on, tapping the card at the window. Well, I got out and I was chatting to the person cleaning my car. I said, "Thank you so much." I said, "My car looks amazing. You've just done such a great job." And he beamed away. I don't think anybody says thank you particularly. Yeah, I think it's a small thing to do, and it might just be what somebody needs. I was just having a look at whether there's some comments there as well. What does Natalie say there? It can be.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says it can be very upsetting to encounter unfriendly and hostile attitudes from others. Feeling unwelcome can be very hurtful. Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's really interesting as well. Yeah, look at the other side of the coin here. If you're not feeling welcome, yeah, that's a really interesting point, and a good conversation to have, because within our community, we're of course absolutely about making everybody feel welcome, but not everywhere is that the case. So yeah, I think it's really good to sort of look at how we deal with if we're not felt welcome. And I think, me personally, I generally use sense of humor if that's the case. If someone didn't make me feel very welcome, I'd probably joke my way out of that, or I would make them feel even more welcome. You know what? There's nothing better if someone isn't making you feel welcome and you're just completely wonderful and kind back to them. It generally speaking, it's either going to work really well in their switch, or you know, they just go away, and it'll probably annoy them. They're looking for a fight, I think, the people who don't make you feel welcome. So, you know, don't let it change you. You know, I think let the good stuff be contagious. You know, often if I'm driving along in my car and, you know, somebody toots their horn at me or something like that, I'll never let it, or if someone cuts me up, I'll never let it get to me, but I'll always let people out, and I'll always try and be generous when I'm driving, because if that, you know, if that sort of behavior then is contagious and other people do it, then, you know, it's a good thing. So I think let positive stuff be contagious, but I think it's always useful to learn some mechanisms to cope with if you're not felt welcome. I think it's really, really interesting and important to say that. So, yeah, well done to who said that?
That was Natalie.
Natalie.
We,
So I have a
yeah.
quick question. If Dean's still there. I know that Texas got hit with a tornado, and I just saw that Hope Power issues get fixed. So hopefully it wasn't from your town that there's a tornado. I couldn't figure out in the news if it was up where you're at. So anyway, I hope that you're safe. Anyway, I just want to plug that in and welcome Dean here, Dean.
Well, I think to Harvey's points and Christy's points, and I think they're so valid, is it's you know, welcome is almost a way of having some humility, just like thank you shows some humility, right? When you go out of your way to appreciate something. And I think what it comes down to is how generous are you? The other thing is it has to do with how confident and secure are you? Because if you're true to yourself and you're aligned, it doesn't matter what someone else does, right? I mean, just like we say here, we help people out of the desire to help people, not to get a return from those people. When you're giving someone a thank you, you're giving them something they're not returning, which means you're giving them more than they're giving out. But you're still giving it, right? And you can still get credit for an acknowledgement, you know. And again, we talked about this in so many sessions, is you never know what a person's going through. You don't know where a person's just been, you know, and you know, to say, hey, maybe they're just having a rough day and they just want to get home, get off of this job, whatever the case. You don't know who their loved ones, what they're dealing with, you know, and that's the key to do what you feel and know is best for someone else, and don't use their response to minimize your ability to reach out, be proactive, be friendly, because you're helping yourself when you're helping others. When you're smiling, it's a real smile. When they're frowning, that doesn't come to you unless you want it to come to you. And again, that comes down with security and confidence. And, you know, in other ways, I feel sorry for the people who can't be happy, who can't acknowledge people around them, who can't be positive, because they suffer in that pool of negativity that they decide to dive into. Sheaf is here. He says self-love, self-care, self-talk can all be welcoming to oneself. Yeah, I mean, it always comes down to you and you, right? While you're waiting to be welcomed, how much welcoming do you do to yourself? And you could treat yourself as a loved one and say, hey, as soon as I get home, I'm getting some baked goods there, and I'm going to get a cup of coffee or a glass of milk, and I'm going to welcome myself, you know, to this club. You know, it's your imagination turns into reality when you act on it. And I think that's so important. Dr. Constance is here. Got to have Dr. Constance back. She is just unbelievable. She's so busy. She's got so many things on her plate, and she does it with so much grace. So Dr. Constance, oh my God, it was hard to come in this morning, just to let you know, if you're wondering. This is a great conversation. Well, anytime you're here, Dr. Constance, it does move the conversation in a great way. AK Moss is here. Hello, AK. Hello, peeking in. AK's got a tremendous story. I'll tell you about AK real quick. She's out in Eastern Oregon. She's what you call a buckaroo, which is different than being a cowboy, and she explained it to me. She has her own little ranch, cows, horses, and she goes around the country speaking for independent farmers and for 4-H members and future farmers of America. Even though she only has 47 connections, she's got a wonderful story, and actually I plan on having her on the show. So it really shows is you're almost better off starting from scratch with the people that are already doing things and wanting to support people than getting into the mob. Let's go to this okay. Here we go with Ambambola. Ambambola's here. If Ambambola's in the house, we know we're doing good today. Natalie, I lived in California, Texas, and now New England. I must admit, people welcome you in so many different ways depending where you are. And it's so true. Even though there was a story of someone who came into a little Western town and, was walking into town and asked the person, sitting down, well, what kind of town is this? And the person asked the person, well, what kind of town you come from? He said, well, the people are all friendly and loving and caring. Well, that's the kind of town we are. And the next person walked by and asked the same question. And the question was, what kind of town you're from? Oh, they're just awful people. They're mean, they're angry, they're hateful. Well, you're going to see those same people here. And a lot of it has to do with where you came from, what you expect, what you're looking for. Because when we talked about tone, physical appearance, all those other things, that is going to attract those type of people to you, and that's where you can end up. Okay, AK says, looking forward to visiting. Great. Harvey, you're back?
He's frozen.
Yeah, my signal's not good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
cool.
Okay.
There's some great comments coming in. Some really interesting and different ways of looking at it, and I think it does depend on where you're from as well. As to how you welcome people, and but then I think sometimes where you're from, is a conversation starter. And it can help you welcome people or help welcome people to you. Again, can you hear me okay? Because it's all frozen.
Yeah, you're coming through. You're coming through, Harvey.
That's good. That's good. But yeah, and it's lovely to see everybody here, and a few people have joined later. It's valuable people's time while if my connection is stable, and if people can see this. It's got to be time for a prop, hasn't it? Now, I thought I'd start. I thought I'd start today's one with a little story, and it's a story about some gold prospectors who went to Australia in 1869, and they found the biggest gold nugget, and it was named the Welcome Stranger. That's what it was called. And there is a pub in the town that I'm from in Hastings called the Welcome Stranger. And pubs, just like other hospitality things, always welcome people. So my prop today is this, if we can see this. And it's a drinks mat, which I made myself. Okay, and the reason it's made of nuts there is partly because it looks quite cool, but also it breaks up the surface tension of the glass, so your glass doesn't stick to the mat. I also liked it, the fact that it's to do with welcoming and socializing, and it breaks up tension. So there's my prop today.
That's
had to have a prop.
I don't think we can ever come up with a word you can't match with a prop. So that's a talent most people don't have. Christy, you see anything interesting here in comments or anything to add to?
I agree with Natalie, if I'm saying that correctly. I mean, I've lived all over the country. I mean, from the East Coast, the West Coast, Midwest, all over the place. And it's very true of how people welcome you. I only lived in New York briefly, but most people think I'm from New York because sometimes I can come off cold. However, those who get to know me know that once you get through that little wall, I'm you have me, I'm the nicest person around. However, it's from living there. And then when I moved to Texas, Texas is very welcoming. It's, hey, come over and, let's have a hoedown. California is different. So it's understanding. And so, I'm just a little bit of a plethora of just everything. But understanding that when somebody says welcome, um, and you're all of a sudden like, well, how are they, you might have a feeling that you didn't have that visible embrace. Um, it's understanding of trying to get through, how am I saying this? Get through the walls, because we do have the walls. We might say, here, I'm welcoming you. And they might all of a sudden say, oh, they're not really welcoming us. We get into so everybody has the power of understanding what the person is trying to do, but they might not be doing it, might not be making you feel welcome the way you would welcome them. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Okay. In my roundabout way that I usually do.
Well, that makes you special, Christy.
Oh, I know. My husband tells me that all the time.
Well, that's good to know, too. Dr. Constance says, I love a good story, and I welcome everyone, not based on their number of followers you have, because you are more than a number to me. We have to be kind to one another and help others. And, I think that's so key, Dr. Constance, because welcoming really validates people, right? When you finally get welcomed in. I mean, how many people want to get into groups or clubs or memberships, and they got to qualify, or someone's got to nominate them, and 2 or 3 people got to second it. And some clubs have waiting lists for years, So when you finally get welcomed in, it's a special feeling, because you are one of a few who either got accepted or one of many who had to compete, stay in the game long enough to be appreciated. So I think that's so key. Thank you. Here we go with Paul. Shout out to Aaron Gibson. Big burly hugs to you, brother. One of the most welcoming people I've met on the platform. Linda comes back with, it's funny now, my old roommate in college and I both were nervous, her being from Harlem of New York, and she heard things about country girls. So we were unsure of each other from opinions. As we stayed together 2 years and created issues, how others, let me see, how others welcomed us, but I need to make our own decisions of a person, not by color, country, etc. And because of that, welcome many people into my life from how welcome others. Well, inclusiveness and having patience, right? And I think the key to words is not jump to the first definition you've always used and thought of that guided you, but to think, why am I basing this on something when I'm right with the person to find out myself, right? And if you want to separate from the superficial, then everybody's equal as a person, as a human, whether they're connected or not, who cares? I'm finding the people who have sometimes the most connections are the least welcoming, because they're thinking, hey, I got 80,000. Why would I deal with you for 1,000? But, that just shows how unevolved, and all the success they might have had with numbers, they haven't translated into human communication, awareness, because the best people should be doing the best things for everybody, not looking just to get better off of someone who has less. And that's really the turnaround here on LinkedIn, is people look at people as a dollar sign most of the time, because they don't know them, and really they don't care to know them, because they know they're probably doing something scammy that's going to make someone feel bad after they're done with them. So the less people know you and you get to know that you'll never see again is probably their motto. So, I think if everybody can compete because they're better and caring than other people, that's at the levels you want to compete. You want to give the best service to the most people who can gain the most value. And ultimately, they'll remember you. They may refer you, they may come back to you, but it's also giving you practice with them. Because you don't know, like Harvey says, that one person, that one connection, somebody could be watching this show 6 months from now who stumbled onto it and heard something one of the three of us said and say, I want to get to know that person, or, hey, that's the person I'm looking for. If you ever hear the stories about Hollywood movies and how they cast individuals for certain movies, it's usually the look, the image, the projection. And I think if you're looking to be a casting director, right, you want to find certain characters that can come into your world and your life and make you better for them. And if everybody brings a better value to someone who couldn't have got it without them, and then in turn get something in return, I mean, you can't beat that for efficiency. Here we go down. Here's something from Paul. Okay, couldn't agree more with you. What you said, sending you. Here's, okay, I think it's a little bit. People should not be measured on popularity. Agreed. Popularity should be based on value, not numbers. Quality, not quantity. What's your thoughts? Harvey, Christy? Possible.
Well, I'll try and go. My while I can.
Yeah, you're looking good.
That's good. It was interesting, actually, Christy, to hear what you said about living in New York and that people think it makes you hard. It just reminds me of that song, that Baz Luhrmann song. Do you remember that song?
Which song is it?
It was Baz Luhrmann. I think it was the Sunscreen song. Got to check it out. It says it's basically a song with somebody giving advice all the way through. It's always worth listening to. But I remember the lyrics in it were, live in New York once, but leave before it makes you hard. Live in Southern California once, but leave before it makes you soft, or something like that. It just reminded me of. But there is some good life advice there. Check out that song.
I will.
It's really good.
I will.
But I think it's really interesting about welcoming everybody, for their value, for what they truly bring. LinkedIn and social media has got to perhaps a little bit to do with too many numbers, and they're important for certain things. I understand that, but what's so much more enjoyable is finding someone you truly connect with, or making a real difference to an individual's life. Sometimes when I put a post out there on a Sunday to try and help people that are looking for work, sometimes it's not that they get a job from it, but they get to be part of a community. They get to be able to talk to other people in a similar position. I'll often put a song on there or some lyrics that perhaps might lift somebody. And, sometimes it's just about doing that. It's about that, making somebody feel welcome. And if you can just do that with one person, now that's a more amazing number than any tens of thousands of of whatever followers or connections. To make one person feel special that's what it's all about. And you can do that one at a time as well. Build these little communities and make people within those communities feel welcome. I think that's really important.
Well, that's what I'm sorry. That's what I try to do. I mean, yeah, I've been on LinkedIn since 2008. My connections are large, but not as large as some people have just been on there for a year because they've, hate to say it, collected people. They might have had a brief conversation, but because I've always been a networker, I've always said, you never know who I know that needs to know you, or vice versa. When I work with people or even just have a conversation, I look at who they are, what they do, how can I help them, and who do I know? And then I do introductions. I'll rack my brain. I'll go in, I'll be like, I know somebody. Now, I don't remember the person's name, but I know, and then I'll go dig into my connections to be able to share that. And then, actually, I had somebody, kept on seeing this person show up on my LinkedIn. And I'm like, I know that name. How do I know that name? Again, I've lived in a lot of states. So, and I know a lot of people, even not off the planet. And so I went over and I connected with him. And he came back and he's like, hey, it's great seeing you, made a little comment, and I'm like, how do I know? Now I remember who that person is. And he happens to be in an industry that I have clients. And so I'm like, anyway, can I connect you with these gentlemen? And there I go. I go and connect these, they were all connected and now they're connected. But it was like, I welcomed them into my connections, but I wanted to make them feel welcome to be able to talk to somebody they actually didn't know that could help them with their job search. So, am I making connections because I want to be popular? No, I was never the popular girl in school. I didn't want to be the girl in school. I'm just who I am. I'm just hanging out and just doing what I do, whatever I do. So, my main thing is I want to welcome people. And you don't want to ever judge the book by its cover. Because I know that there's times where when people meet me or my conversations could come off a little short, but it's just that's just who I am. But I'm welcoming. I mean,
I think you're more than welcoming, because what comes to mind with what you just said is you're welcoming people to somebody else's welcome too. Right? If you're going to do the referral, they're going to get welcomed by that referral based on the communication you had, right? If someone is looking for a special person, you found that person or believe it could be that person. Not only have you welcomed them, but now they're going to get a second welcome out of it. Paul makes a good point here. Sometimes you won't always be welcomed. And one of the things I found about authenticity is that you have to have the courage to stand alone in your truth. Well, that's a great comment. Groucho Marx, who's an old-time comedian, once said that he wouldn't be a member of any club that would even think of having him. So if some club would qualify people as him, he didn't want to be part of that club. Rita's here. Rita's always here from Eugene, and putting Eugene on the map, Rita. Good for you. Hi, Don. Great to see you. Rita's on Wednesdays. Cindy's here. Okay, Ambambola says, I'm fine. It's just too cold due to drizzling. Weather is all different everywhere. Okay, Dutch and German. Good to define that. Charles, haven't seen Charles in a while. Great to be.
I know. I've missed Charles.
Oh yeah, without Charles, I don't get to know what's going on in Hong Kong. Charles Caldwell, hello. How do they say welcome in Hong Kong? They're just coming in now. A quick LOLO from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I guess that's how they say it out there. Big burly hugs all around. Thank you so much, Aaron. Paul comes back with, I know when I first got on this platform, I wasn't welcome with open arms because people would look at me and think, oh, he's like the rest of the Gen Zers. And that's why now I introduce people down to give them the experience I didn't have. Well, it's a good point, Paul, because sometimes you don't get welcomed immediately. Sometimes, you don't even get recognized. But if you keep showing up, they say in any game, 90% of success is showing up to it every day, because you'll learn and you'll be around people that can help you. Linda says, oh, we got Harvey back. Sorry, Harvey, I forgot to look to the left. Agree.
Sorry.
Popular, not a problem. Making real connections, meaningful connections, and conversations with people, not another number following. AK says, that is what I heard. This is what's happening for me, for you. Well, great. And that's so important to me and Christy and Harvey, to really get people who honestly wouldn't have got the value they have without some assistance or support. So that makes it worth doing when people actually apply it and can come back and say, I won or I gained something. Natalie says, I did a Google search. This is interesting. Several companies or countries are often mentioned as being particularly welcoming to foreigners. Here are a few examples. Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Iceland, Ireland, and 4 of the 5 are connected to England in one shape or another. So maybe that's part of cold food and warm welcomes, or not as spicy welcomes. A.K. Moss says, hi, Rita. Let me see. Here's one from Ashif. Be the reason someone feels welcome, seen, heard, valued, loved, and supported. Why not? You're getting free benefit from something that costs you nothing, something that makes you feel better after you do it, and maybe can help the person. That's like a trifecta right there. Here we go. That's why people should just come here, a safe, welcoming environment. Yeah, and let it happen. I mean, before the show, me and Christy and Harvey were saying is all we do is go with the flow now. And it's so less restrictive, so less stressing on what do I come up with that's interesting or valuable. It's easier for someone to give you a clue or two, and then you can jump right in knowing what you're working with. I think here's one. They're coming in late returns. Paul
Yeah,
said,
and unfortunately, guys, sorry, I got to jump. I forgot.
no, great to see you, Christy. Look forward to next week. And
Next
we'll
Tuesday.
again on Tuesday. I'll be on
Yes.
Christy and
Kelly.
The
Awesome journey. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. And I believe that's about where we are on time on the show. Final comments, Harvey?
Yeah, I think I want to say that I'm always welcome to new connections. I will always be welcoming to people. I'll always try and connect people. I think it's a kind thing to do. I think it was Caroline Flack that said you can be anything you want in this world, so be kind. And I like that one. And being welcoming is being kind. So, and there's a great big long list of wonderful people in this community that have made me feel welcome. We're all making each other feel welcome and adding value. And I want to say hello to Charles. Oh, and also wanted to say about this tornado that Christy mentioned. I didn't know about that, and I hope everyone's okay. It's important to say. But yeah, it's nice to see Charles, and it's lovely to see when the names come up of the people that are our friends here, are part of our community. It makes me feel welcome. Because otherwise it would just be me sitting in a car saying some things. To see my friends here makes me feel welcome. So thank you.
And you create that welcoming by being as authentic and sincere over and over consistently, and that's what demonstrates long-term value in somebody, not when they can do something once in a while, but when they're focused on looking for those opportunities where they could drop a nice saying or a thought, or just being there is a welcoming thing. A lot of times you may not even know how to communicate with the person next to you, but you're happy to have someone, right? Someone to take your mind off of you, something to occupy somewhere. And usually welcome comes with being in a strange, unfamiliar place, right? If you're in your own country, you always know what welcome is or where you're not and how it works. But when you go somewhere else that no one knows you, no one really understands you, that's where welcoming plays such a big role, because you don't feel like I'm in this for myself. And, it's hard to be around a huge population and be all the way separated from them until you can either bridge the language gap or you can just use nonverbal ways of being attracted to people. Paul says, did you get the invite for the show I'm speaking at tonight? Natalie, thank you for the great conversation. Hospitality is not to change people, but offer them space where change can take place. Henri Nguyen. Hey, that is terrific. You know, I mean, we bring a lot of French in here today. We brought some Dutch in here today, Swahili. So not only are we bringing the people, we're bringing the words with the people. And Natalie, come on, guests, leave us friends and return as family. That's another valuable one. These nuggets are just flying out now. So, you know,
see those are the real gold nuggets. I spoke of a gold nugget, but these are the real gold nuggets.
And they'll shine forever, right?
Yeah.
And they're priceless if you use them properly. So I want to thank everybody. Come back tomorrow. Tomorrow's show, I'll tell you really quick. We've got Leslie here tomorrow, and then we've got Sarah back on Sunday, Gretchen on Monday, Leslie on Tuesday, Don, Rita, and Deb Curtis, who is brand new, will be here Wednesday. So got a great lineup for weeks to come. Thank you all for making this special for me, for Harvey, for Christy, and especially for everybody else. Make this a welcoming day in your life and bring as many people into your welcome as you can, and tell us about it the next time you come back. We're interested in knowing how it worked. So thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and we'll talk again. Take care. Bye.